Mistress Vania Changes Jobs, Episode 12. Hank knew what it was like to be fat like Roger. Hank worked out and had ripped killer abs, and his arms were massive. Yet it had not always been that way. Once Hank had been dumped by Daphne. It had hit him hard. He had blamed her, then himself, then women generally, and finally he blamed the world. The world had a lot to answer for, and he would show the world who was boss. What followed was a food binge that lasted 3 years. It was brought to an abrupt halt with a medical emergency that ended in hospital with life-saving surgery. Then the rebuilding phase occurred, with a new attitude to food and a new workout schedule. He returned to the world healthier and able to achieve his new goal, which ended in him finding a semi-permanent girlfriend with body hair issues. Hank's story was a triumph of the human spirit. He had great empathy for Roger. Their journey was very different, but they had both had their share of pizza demons. Hank had all but won the war. Roger was still in the heat of battle. Hank had worried about the internet meeting of Roger and his very attractive and desirable Jane Gambate. Even though Hank could not have known that it was Rico creating a persona, he instinctively knew that it was too good to be true. Always Roger would turn up online, only to later report back on his disastrous first dates. With his current unhealthy lifestyle and embarrassing body issues, he was never going to impress women, and his standards in choosing women to go out with made the whole situation worse. Hank text-messaged Roger's phone. He even tried to use geospatial applications to locate Roger on the mobile network. There was only one explanation. Roger had fallen victim to the worldwide conspiracy that is the illegal trade in human organs for transplant. It was clear that Roger's phone was off, and therefore Hank had resigned himself to the sad fact that Roger was probably dead. It was not normal for someone to be reported as a missing person within hours of losing contact with friends and loved ones. It was even more unusual that a missing person report should be filed by someone a world away. Hank had to explain to the Hauptmannschaft police that he had never actually met Roger in real life. However, he was certain that his online friend was in real and terrible danger. The operator on the call put him through to a duty sergeant, who told him to call back in a week if Roger was still missing. It was suggested that Roger had gone to visit a friend and forgotten to tell anyone. Hank knew that Roger had no friends other than those online. Roger was a deliberately obnoxious person. He saw his lack of friends as a sign of prestige. In the age of the internet, news was reported as it happened. Speed took precedence over accuracy, and facts could be corrected later. Hank turned to the Hauptmannschaft standard. He expected a story about the discovery of Roger's oversized dead body submerged in a hotel bathtub full of melted ice. Instead, he found dozens of stories about someone called Nick Dunn, a man whose most minor activities were reported in great detail. Hank read on and found another article calling for Hauptmannschaft residents to share their missing person stories. The paper was keen to publish these stories and possibly find those people who were lost. Quickly, Hank wrote an email outlining the improbability of Roger's date and the almost routine harvesting of his kidneys by a gang of organized criminals. Hank's description made these things appear both alarming and certain. Amanda's call for missing persons had received no responses. This was not strictly true. At the missing person address, there were 3 messages asking for more Nick Dunn stories, and a 4th message saying that Nick Dunn had been missing for the last 3 years and that he had been kidnapped and replaced with a body double. The writer attempted to form a coherent argument as to why anyone would want to do this, but it was not well sustained. Amanda's spirits fell still further when the email address, which had only been created an hour earlier, started to attract spam. 4 identical messages selling discount medications appeared in the space of 30 minutes. With no email leads and a desire to drown herself sooner than write another Nick Dunn article, Amanda was about ready to go home. And then Hank's email arrived, with a chime. Despite being loopy, Hank's email constituted the closest thing to a lead that Amanda had received all day. Following the address for video chat, Amanda contacted Hank. Hank was not what she was expecting, nor was Amanda what Hank was expecting. "Man," said Hank, looking into the camera with fascination. "You're from the Hampton Shifty Standard? That was quick. I've tried to get some action happening, but everyone ignores me. With you guys, it's live action." "Yes," said Amanda, quickly establishing that Hank ticked all the boxes for superficially normal. "Live action is our middle name. In your email, you say your friend Roger is hardwired into his phone. He would sooner die than turn it off. If his hot date turned out well, maybe his priorities changed. I know I'm playing devil's advocate on this one, and I know you're pretty stressed about it, judging from your email, but work with me here. I think we're pretty close to establishing something strange is happening. Maybe not stolen kidneys, but it's definitely something." While she was talking, Amanda viewed the video of Rico dancing at the nightclub. Rico had originally sent the link to Roger, who had sent it to Hank, who had now sent it to Amanda. Next, Amanda saw a recent photograph of Roger showing the full extent of his weight gain. "Check the links I sent you," said Hank, pressing the point. "Girls like her don't go out with guys like Roger." "I see what you mean," agreed Amanda. "She's tearing up the dance floor. Your friend looks like he'd be refused entry to every nightclub in the country because he contravenes fire regulations." "Enough with the fat jokes," said Hank, affronted. "I wasn't always the well-proportioned guy that you see before you. I have pizza demons too, you know." "Your friend, Roger," asked Amanda. "Didn't he, get with the program and see this was very weird?" "Roger's weight problem is very complicated," said Hank. "He had self-esteem issues. He overcompensated. In his mind he believed he was much more attractive to women than he was, and he kept using an old photograph of himself when he was a lot thinner." "Okay," said Amanda, sighing. "He was in denial. Now we jump forward. Because he's been missing for 1 day, and his phone has been turned off, you've concluded that he had his internal organs stolen and is probably dead." "I'm not sure you're taking this seriously," said Hank. "I never met the guy in person, but we met online and we connected on all levels. Anyway, always, in all things, our journey kept overlapping in personal experience. I think I was close to changing his path, turning his life around. You know what I'm saying. But this internet dating thing took hold of him. This girl was too perfect. She must have been trawling every online resource she could find. She seemed to know him, even before she met him. She pressed all his buttons. Her mistake was that there were no mistakes. Every shot hit its mark. Roger called it the power of the internet. He talked himself into believing what he wanted to be true. Roger was no different to anyone else in this world. He was searching for a soulmate. She took advantage of that vulnerability." Amanda thought Hank's use of the past tense was theatrical. It seemed unlikely that Hampton Shufti would be part of an organ-stealing operation. It was such a boring and pointless town in all other respects. Hank was becoming emotional as the pitch of his voice began to rise. "I love that guy," explained Hank, tearing up. "Sure, he was an asshole at times. Okay, most of the time. But none of us are perfect. When do we judge ourselves by the same standards we judge others? We were going to start a band. We'd talk about it for hours online. Neither of us can play instruments, but we shared the dream. We were going to find some other guy who couldn't play instruments either, and then we got a drummer that was a girl. It was going to be awesome, especially the bit about having a girl drummer. We figured she'd be hot and have tattoos. Roger always said, if you want to be in our band, you need to have had a lot of ink done. That's the way he said it, ink done. It sounded so badass. And now the dream is over. But what does it matter? You've heard this story, and you're not going to do anything about it. No one cares." Amanda considered Hank's story. Worst case scenario, Roger turned up alive. She could do a consumer watchdog style of report on the perils of internet dating. Best case scenario is that Roger turned up dead in a dumpster with most of his internal organs missing. Most likely it was going to be somewhere in the middle. From Amanda's point of view, there was little downside. The response to the missing persons day was nil apart from Hank. "There's a story in there somewhere," said Amanda. "I'll be honest with you. Some people might say, 'I'll follow it up,' and not mean it. I will follow it up, not because I believe Roger's organs have been stolen, not because I particularly care about Roger. He sounds like someone I'd like to avoid if I met him socially. But I will follow up because Captain Shufti is so damn boring that nothing else is happening." "Thank you," said Hank, sounding relieved that he now had someone fighting in Roger's corner. "You sound like you're acting out of self-interest. I appreciate your honesty, but I'm just happy I found someone who's willing to do something. I would have stopped him if I could, but I'm too far away. Any flight would have got me there too late. Perhaps in the end Roger's salvation was thwarted by the tyranny of distance." Amanda got from Hank some of Roger's in-real-life details. Being an online friendship, the things Hank knew about Roger were online things. Hank knew Roger had a car, but he'd never seen it. Strangely, he used his old email to establish that it was an early model Toyota hatchback in metallic red. No license plate that he could offer. Roger's physical address was taken directly from the phone directory. Bored out of her mind, Amanda threw herself into the story. It took on a new proportion in her mind. It was the story. Driving directly to Roger's home address, Amanda noted that it was a nondescript apartment in a block of 4. She found the apartment number 3. The door had scuff marks where it had been kicked and held open with someone's rubber-soled shoe. The door itself needed a coat of white paint. She tried the door. Optimistically, it was locked. Looking through the locked window, Amanda could see a badly furnished room with a lot of empty pizza boxes. She could always come back. Next up was the restaurant. To Amanda, the idea of Caravaggio, cafe and grill sounded very strange. When she arrived, the first and only dinner sitting was underway. With very few customers, she saw a young man who was operating an espresso machine. Baristas always knew something about everything. He would be a good start. "Hi," said Amanda, smiling. "I'm a reporter from the Captain Shufti Standard. I'm doing a story on Nick Dunn." This was a straight-out lie, but Nick Dunn was always a good starting point for any conversation. "Nick Dunn," said the barista, his face brightening as he frothed a metal jug of milk. "You wrote those articles?" "Yes," admitted Amanda. "We're real big on Nick Dunn at the moment." "What a guy," agreed the barista. "I love the article about Nick Dunn's view on global warming and the ethics of pet ownership. He's the man, and I have so much respect for him as a sportsman. I saw him ride 2 months ago. Masterful." "It may not be particularly relevant," said Amanda, edging towards the real line of questioning, "but would you remember a really fat guy might have been in here last night with a hot date that looked like she was from Japan?" "Yeah," said the barista, then squinting suspiciously. "What's he got to do with Nick Dunn?" "I really shouldn't say anything," said Amanda. "I think he's a horse-meat advocate. Nick Dunn wants to confront him, challenge him to a debate. The Standard would cover the story, but I don't want to say too much. He may not be the guy. It's really a case of tracking him down. Most of the horse-meat advocacy is done anonymously through social media. There is someone online going by the username of Hungry1, and we think it's him." "Damn," said the barista. "I figured he'd have to chow down on something in a big way, but I never thought it would be horses. Nick Dunn's certainly taking the fight to where it's at." Amanda's story was a complete fabrication, but the barista was buying it, so she went on with it. "Yeah," said Amanda, "to some of us, horses are people too." "Beautiful creatures," agreed the barista. "The guy you described, he's a regular here. One of the waitresses hates him. She tells us all these stories. He hooks up with these hot dates, meets them on the internet with misleading information. Then, when they see that he's really massive, it gets awkward." so we usually let the girls know that they can get out through the back door of the kitchen. Some look angry, others just look disappointed, but angry is the most common reaction. I blame the internet, said Amanda. Hell yeah, said the barista. The people in the advertisements for dating app sites are all these beautiful people, and I'm thinking, yeah, right, like you're going to be on the internet dating. I'm sure some nice people try dating on the internet, said Amanda. I guess so, said the barista. But if 1 in 20 people internet date, or whatever the number is, and you look at 1 in 20 people walking down the street or on the bus, you'll find some strange cats in that cohort. Trust me, I also work in another cafe, sometimes as a barista. I overhear the post-internet conversations women have with their friends. It's all lost souls and weirdo central, according to them. So all these girls made a run for it, asked Amanda. What about the Japanese woman? She stayed, said the barista. Maybe it was a cultural thing, too polite to dump him mid-date. Maybe she likes fat guys, go figure. My friend who's a waitress here commented on it. Said she looked happy, didn't need rescuing. She stayed the whole time and left with him through the front door. That was a change. The woman, was she local? I'd never seen her before, said the barista. Between my job here and the other one at the cafe, I see a lot of people, and Hafton Shufti doesn't have many Japanese residents, so if I'd seen her before, I think I would have noticed her and remembered. Thanks, said Amanda, smiling. You've been very helpful. Hopefully we can shine a light in the dark places and make this guy accountable for his horse-eating advocacy. Amen to that, said the barista, passion in his voice. Never mind the debate. Nick Dunn should whip that guy's sorry ass for real. Neither Amanda nor the barista realized that Roger was getting his ass whipped in royal style by someone entirely different.